And we are live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Self-Publishing Insiders. And I should say a special rousing edition of Self-Publishing Insiders because today we have assembled an all-star cast of publishing industry prognosticators to kind of take us through 2024 and give us their predictions of what they feel might be the key trends and issues that will impact the industry going forward. Now, if you are not familiar with Jane or Dale or Joanna or Mark, do yourselves a favor and subscribe to their newsletters, their YouTube channel, their podcasts, because as authors, whether you are aspiring or you've been at this for a decade or longer, it's imperative that you keep your finger on the pulse of this industry, and this team here can help you do just that. I'm going to take a step back here, and instead of me providing an introduction of all of them, I thought it would be more useful if they introduce themselves to talk about what it is that they do and maybe a little bit of their background. So perhaps we'll start with the ladies. Jane, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Jane Friedman. I am the editor and publisher of a paid newsletter called The Hot Sheet, which reports on the industry for an audience of authors and other people who support authors. It's not particularly geared toward self-publishing or traditional publishing, since I tend to think all affairs in publishing affect us pretty equally. And aside from that, I do some online education and also have a free newsletter about digital tools called Electric Speed, and you can find that all at my website. And I've been working in publishing since the mid-90s. I've seen all the changes. There will be more changes, so I look forward to the discussion.
What makes you say that?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, Joanna.
I'm Joanna Penn. I write nonfiction for authors as Joanna Penn, and I also write thrillers, dark fantasy, horror, and other things as JF Penn. And my podcast is the Creative Penn Podcast, and that is probably the best place to find me, also on YouTube.
Excellent. And I will provide links to all of your different sites toward the end or during this conversation as well. So don't worry, folks out there, you will receive those links. Let's go in alphabetical order. Mr. Coker.
I'm Mark Coker. I'm the founder of Smashwords. We merged with Draft Digital about a year and a half ago, early 2022. My job as Chief Strategy Officer at Draft Digital is really focused on business planning and challenging the company to think about how we can better serve authors and lead the way. I'm also the host of the Smart Author Podcast, which, speaking in the past tense, was a masterclass in evergreen best practices. So there are about 14 episodes. Haven't done one in over a year. I might add some more in the future, but it's a great place to really educate yourself on best practices.
Good. Thanks, Mark. Mr. Roberts.
That's a tough act to follow. I'm telling you, all three of you guys are just fantastic. I'm Dale L. Roberts. I am a prolific nonfiction author and also a video content creator. You might recognize me as that bald guy who bloviates a lot about self-publishing. In fact, I have over, you ready for this, 1,400 videos on two separate YouTube channels. One of them is just me talking about things, and the other one is me on a podcast. I love this business. I love chatting about it, and I look forward to chatting more about this.
Well, thanks for being here, Dale. Thanks, Joanna. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Mark. I'm super excited that you're all here and really appreciate your time. I thought it might be useful before we dive into 2024 predictions, if we could maybe set a little bit of foundational knowledge, a little bit of background by talking about what occurred in 2023. What were a couple of the key issues that seemed to really hit home in 2023? And maybe have kind of made a leap into 2024. Jane, let's start with you on that one.
Well, artificial intelligence, I think, is probably top of mind for everyone. It certainly affected me personally. Some of you may have seen that news story over the summer. And there are so many lawsuits coming that will have to be sorted out. They're not going to get settled this year. I think we're going to be sorting through those legal matters probably for 3 to 5 years, if not longer. For those who don't know, the New York Times has sued the major AI company, OpenAI. The Authors Guild has sued. Several more author groups have sued last week. So I'm sure we'll get into some of the more particulars. I tend to follow the legal conversations around it rather than the creative applications. I'm pretty neutral on the matter, but it just raises so many issues from a copyright perspective that will be fascinating to watch unfold, even if painful.
Okay, thank you. Joanna, anything to add to that for
Well,
2023?
Well, it's as Jane said, and this is the in my mind, 2023 was the year when people became aware of generative AI, and 2024 is when it's moving very fast into all kinds of processes. So even while, yes, there are lawsuits, other companies who have the proprietary data are moving into generating their own models or creating their own models. So Getty, for example, just yesterday, they had a lawsuit against another AI company, but now they've released their own generative AI. So it's even if these court cases shut down OpenAI, there are so many other models. So I feel like last year was the awareness, 2024 will be the development, and 2025 we're going to see like the mainstream. So this is going to be very interesting.
Interesting answer. Mark, anything to add, whether it's AI related or other for happened in 2023?
I think AI was really probably the biggest story of 2023, and I agree with Joanna's perspective of how things are kind of unfolding here. I would just add that what we saw with people becoming aware of AI in 2023, we saw the reaction to radical change. This is a radical step change in technology. This is like going from the horse and buggy to the automobile, from the prop plane to the jet, from the jet to the rocket ship. It's a step change. Humans in general don't like change. It makes us uncomfortable. And so what we saw in the reaction, in the public reaction from the creator community, the author community, in 2023 was a lot of fear, a lot of generalized anxiety. And the dark side of that is it translated into a lot of bullying and a lot of hate. And anyone who came out and spoke positively about AI was attacked. So that was in my mind, I think that was a reaction to the fear. It was toxic. I think what we're going to see in 2024 is that's going to mellow out a little bit. There's going to be recognition that authors were taken advantage of. This is personal to us at Drafted Digital. All tens of thousands of Smashwords books were incorporated into Book Corpus, which ultimately helped build ChatGPT. So our authors rightly feel violated. These books were taken without their permission, without any consideration for compensation, or how our authors' intellectual property is going to be used to produce billions, maybe trillions of dollars of profits for other people, but not for the authors. So we totally understand how authors feel violated, but I think what we're going to see in 2024 is authors are going to start to wake up and see that this is a tool. This is a powerful tool, a tool that can help authors achieve their dreams, a tool that can help authors work more efficiently, write more, write better, a tool that can make our books more accessible to more readers. Thinking about like digital narration, synthetic narration of audiobooks. Audiobooks are too expensive for the vast majority of readers. So this almost creates an entirely new format of book for people to enjoy books, low cost, digitally narrated audiobooks. Why shouldn't audiobooks cost $2.99? They should. So, I'm thinking a lot about AI when I think about what happened in 2023 and what's coming in the future.
I've been following the whole artificial intelligence thing for a while because I know Joanna has been covering it extensively, her and Michael Laron. And it's a super exciting yet very scary time for a lot of people because they're afraid of being replaced in some capacity. But I think those that are afraid of having their jobs replaced need to understand that there are still people out there that are of the old school mentality. Like, to me, I'm still going to hire a human narrator. I'm still going to hire a human cover designer. Like those are things I don't think I'll veer away from. But in the same instance, I still like to leverage artificial intelligence for other aspects of my business, from outlining to ideation to even, putting together a marketing plan. That was crazy. I spent about an hour last night just playing around with it because I just had this fun tool that I'm kind of just doing so much great stuff with. But yeah, I heard a lot of stuff. And Mark, you must have been paying attention to some of my comments on my videos, because man, the heat came as soon as I started being pro AI. There was a lot of people that were like, no, that's it, unsubscribed, I'm going to cancel you. Like, I was like, geez, calm down. How about that? But let me just kind of veer over into something like I can share a little bit of data with you guys when it comes to my channels. One of the things I noticed was a large part of my content that resonates the most with a lot of my viewers based on watch time as well as views was usually Amazon KDP. But last year I saw this massive shift over to KDP alternatives, looking into something that was beyond the Kindle Direct Publishing platform. How can I publish wide? How can I get into more readers' hands? And it was crazy because I've been all about that life for a while. Been loving it. I mean, I started out with Smashwords when I ended up going wide. I'm not trying to kiss up to you here, Mark. But I really was, surprised when it was like all of a sudden everybody shifted over. And then I noticed that some of the content that was really starting to resonate with people were things regarding like bad stuff over on KDP, things like account terminations and suspensions. And so with those happening, so many people were like, okay, I don't want that to happen to me. What do I need to do next to make things happen? So it was pretty interesting to see that all unfold last year for me. And I'm kind of just scratching my head because it changed my strategy as a video content creator considerably. And it's made it a lot more fun because there's so many options out there that are absolutely fantastic and worth exploring for many indie authors. And I think the more options that we have, the more that this business can grow and flourish and really start to, turn into something amazing.
Yeah, agreed. And Dale, when did you first start seeing that shift? Was it toward the beginning of last year or the mid last year? Because I've noticed that some of your the titles for some of your podcasts, KDP alternatives, really seem to take off maybe in the mid part of the year.
Yeah, it was probably right around March to April time, I think. I think Drafted Digital had rolled out. It might have been Palace Marketplace, something that was added to what you guys had. And then I just noticed like people were like, no. They're just consuming the content. They're sharing it. They're commenting. And that to me seems like, oh, I just tapped a nerve. This is something that people really want to learn so much more about, which is super exciting for me because I have to admit to you, and I think these other three fine folks, especially Joanna, you kind of get tired of talking about the same thing over and again. So when you have an opportunity to break into something new, it's very refreshing. Like I am just excited to talk about those alternatives and give them the spotlight. And yeah, it was crazy to see that shift. And I'm looking forward to seeing what 2024 has to offer, because I heard through the grapevine that at 20 Books Vegas, a huge part of discussion was over direct sales. And I am super excited about direct sales. I really think that if you can remove that middleman and get it to where you're earning more as an author and building your audience and keeping your audience, that's amazing.
Let's talk about that next before we move into 2024 as like another 2023 item, because I recall it back in 2021. It was just starting to, it seemed to me at least, that direct sales was just starting to percolate. Then 2022, it started gaining more momentum. And then 2023 was like, kapow! Everybody was talking about direct sales. What do you think, Jane? Do you feel like there's just going to be this flood of authors moving toward direct, or is that reserved for authors who are more established? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so far, I think it does require more of a skill set. Also, typically requires you to have more than one book in the hopper. It's not that you couldn't pursue direct sales right out of the gate, but you typically need to have an email newsletter list, something of a platform in order to reach those readers directly. At least for a debut author, you may not really have even a good sense of who your readers are unless you've just done a ton of market research in advance of that first launch. So I am like I 100% support the strategy. I just would hate to see authors get discouraged if they don't see their direct sales take off right away, because it is really a long game, as I'm sure anyone here would attest to. I do really appreciate the effort that Ream is making on the serialization side. So Ream is a direct to reader sales of serializations through kind of like Vela, except you own and control the people who are subscribing to your content. It's kind of it's maybe been called the marriage of Patreon and Vela, or Patreon and something else, and any of it, or Patreon and Substack. So think about if Patreon were really just geared towards the needs of novelists. That's kind of what it's like if you haven't seen it yet. So it's been fun to watch that community grow and progress, and just see a lot of excitement around that model.
A lot of excitement. Did you have anything to add to that, Joanna?
Oh, so much. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this. Mark and I were saying before we started recording, we met in Brisbane, Australia back in 2009. And Mark has always been a proponent of the independent author, as in, are you really independent? And back then, when I started self-publishing, I sold direct from the beginning. I sold on one shopping cart. I sold through PayHip. I sold through all kinds of random products over the years. And then in the last couple of years, it's been Shopify. So I've got 2 Shopify stores now. I've done 2 Kickstarters. A lot of people are doing more interesting direct, and that's what I think the shift is, because we didn't have the possibility to do these amazing, beautiful products really before the last couple of years. So being able to do gold foil on a print on demand book, or like I just did in terms of ribbons and interior prints, and we could thank you, Dale. He's got Writing the Shadow we've got on the audio. So I think that's what's changed in the last year and a bit, is that suddenly we can do so much more, and the business model of being of selling direct is so much better. So even for audiobooks, we mentioned audiobooks, I make so much more money selling audiobooks direct, and here we've got props to BookFunnel for allowing us to sell audiobooks direct, but to do print direct and do beautiful higher value products that make us more money, that is the game changer. So and people are saying, okay, it's worth the effort to build a store, or it's worth the effort to do other ways of going direct in order to make that higher volume. And most of my direct sales now are driven by my author platform in the same way they always have been. But the shift is that I direct everyone to my stores, rather than what we have done for years, putting people to Books to Read or to Amazon. And in fact, this is still an outstanding request. I need my Shopify stores on my Books to Read link. But these are things that noted. But this is something that I think has started to shift. Like you said, at 20 Books Vegas, I was on a Kickstarter panel. There was so much discussion about this, people moving more into merchandise, people doing experiences. And I think what's interesting, especially because Jane's here as well, is that these sales are all invisible. So nobody is measuring my income or my sales on my stores or my Kickstarter. There's no bestseller lists looking at us, like Brandon Sanderson, 41 million, not on a bestseller list. I mean, what's so crazy to me is that a decade ago, we were talking about the shadow industry of self-publishing. And now we've got a shadow industry of direct sales. So does it matter? I personally don't care. I'm just going to have the money in my bank account, which is all good. But I think that is going to be interesting over time.
Excellent.
Yeah, just a postscript on what Joanna said, the shadow of the shadow. There was some interesting reports that came out of Stripe in particular, I think, which Stripe is a payment processor that's very popular and used by people who use Shopify or, other direct sales methods. And they reported just outstanding returns for people they classify as creators. So that's one way of getting at it. But of course, creators includes all sorts of people, not just authors.
Excellent. Mark?
Well, I'm excited about the excitement around direct sales. I think the growing excitement is really a symptom of the author community waking up and realizing the importance of independence, the importance of operating your own platform, and also a rejection to some of the bad behavior of the major platforms. So, there's a growing awareness, I think, in the community that Amazon and KDP Select exclusivity is toxic to the long-term future of indie authors, toxic to the long-term future of book culture, and to the entire book ecosystem. And authors have never forgotten how Facebook ripped the rug from underneath their feet by charging authors money to reach readers that the author had already drawn to the platform. And so you've got this rejection of gatekeepers that gatekeep your access to your readers that want to reach you. It's not like you can go to Amazon and trust that, or any retailer really, and trust that every single former customer of yours who bought your book at that store, one of your books at that store, is going to be notified that you have a new book out. The retailers aren't doing that. That's a disservice, and to not offer that. And so I think that's what's driving a lot of the interest in direct. My concern about direct, though, is that often in this search of cutting out the middleman, you end up costing yourself more. Retailers do provide a lot of important, valuable service to authors, and they bring audience that you may not have access to. So I like to think of direct as really kind of a multi-channel thing. It's one aspect of your multi-channel, one aspect of your income stream, and like
so don't look at it as like an either or. Don't look at it as an either or.
It's not an either or. It's something you should build up as you can, but it is a long-term thing. And most authors are going to, I think, at least in 2024, are going to find failure when they try it, because there is expense typically involved in operating your own store, not just in the money you have to pay every month in a subscription fee and the service fees, but your time. And I think authors often forget about the importance of time management and what their unique contribution to the world is. An author's unique contribution to society and to humanity is their original creative work. It's not, operating a store. So yes, operate a store if you can make it work, because it is in your personal best interest to do so and to have access to your audience. But
okay, I want to give Dale a chance to talk about this as well. Then we'll move into 2024, because we're cranking through the time.
Can you just let Orna in as well, Jim? Can you let Orna in? She's here.
She made
it. Get your attention. Sorry, Dale. Yay. Carry on.
Carry on, Dale. It's not letting me scroll down to Orna.
Always love hearing from Mark, especially when it comes to knowing that balance of direct sales and publishing on, as much avenues as possible, because it's all about discoverability and accessibility. You want to make yourself accessible, but don't do it at the detriment of your own business and sanity. But yeah, I'm super excited about direct sales, but in the same instance, I'm not fully bullish. I'm just curious, since Joanna's here and, obviously, and Orna's just popping in here. You guys just finished up a Kickstarter campaign, both just successful. You smashed it. Do you think that Kickstarter is going to continue to be flooded with indie authors, and will it continue to be like this golden goose that's going to provide great results for everyone? Or is there somebody that isn't? Sorry, Jim, seems like I'm taking over moderation, but I'm curious while I have these two here.
Jim, you're muted.
Jim, we lost you, bud.
Muted.
Orna, take it.
I'm back. Go ahead.
Okay, you take it, Jim.
No. Let's just pause here for a second, because Orna Ross of the Alliance of Independent Authors just joined, and we have to give her the ability to introduce herself and to all of you out there. So Orna, welcome. We're so glad that you made it.
First of all, I'm very sorry for being late. And thank you for letting me in. So I'm Orna Ross. I'm a novelist, a poet, and I'm also founder director of the Alliance of Independent Authors. And I came in there as you were talking about direct sales, and Dale spoke about not being super bullish. I'm super bullish about direct. I think it is the most exciting trend that's happened for authors. I was always pro-direct, actually. It was always, and so were lots of the advisory team at the Alliance of Independent Authors. It was always our advice that every author should have every indie author should have a transactional website, that it's fine for somebody who's published by a third-party publisher to have just a brochure site. But that an indie author should have, at minimum, if somebody lands on your website, that they have the ability to buy the book there, ebooks and digital audiobooks, at least. It doesn't make sense not to, in my opinion. And then as the tools have just got better and better in terms of bringing people to your website and getting attention, it just seems to be, and as things have got, more murky in other places, I think it just makes more and more sense. And yes, Kickstarter can fold into a direct sales strategy very well, I think. And the big difference, and I'm sure you've already mentioned this, is having the all-important data yourself. And so each sale then is not just a one-off thing that you have no access to, but each time somebody buys from you, you're building on that. So it gives you the opportunity to build a truly sustainable business that nobody else can take away from you. Yes, it's work, and yes, it's not what an author was born to do. But if you're an indie author, you're not just an author, you're also a publisher. And so if you're going to be a publisher, be a good one. And if you're going to be a good publisher, you probably need to have some direct sales in there at least.
Great, thank you for that. Shall we shift gears in the time that we have left? We've got about 15 minutes left, maybe about 20 minutes left. Shall we dive into 2024? What are the key issues of 2024? There's going to be some overlap, understandably. Let's jump into that.
I was going to say the two big things I have are AI and direct sales. I think, or we can all say that what 2023 was the beginning. I called it year zero of the next 15 years. So the last 15 years has been the growth of, let's say, platform sales for indie authors. Mm-hmm. And the next 15 years are going to be, sure, the platforms are going to still be around, but we authors are finally stepping into their teenage years of independence and taking control of the money. I get paid within minutes sometimes, and control of customer data through direct sales. Also, I feel like many of us have stopped chasing mass market and are looking at serving smaller community. And it's all about the website, the email list. Someone just said, how do we do the marketing? I've done the same thing for 15 years. Content marketing has been the pillar. My podcast for nonfiction and for fiction, it's been a perma-free plus a reader magnet. That's literally what I've done for 15 years. So I think that's what I'm thinking as is 2024 is year one of what is becoming a very different business model for authors. Someone said that the legal issue is going to become even more serious. They will be dealt with. And I mentioned earlier that there are many companies actually building proprietary models. For example, Amazon's Olympus, which may be twice as big as GPT-4. I think that many people seem to think OpenAI is the only company doing this. They are not. It is every company. You can use Google Bard, you can use Google Gemini, which is the latest model again, which is comparable. I mentioned Getty's image model. So it doesn't matter if these legal things happen, we are going to see the models continue. So that's why I see this as a continuum of what we've already talked about. It will just get more and more interesting, and authors are going to have to learn new skills at the rate that we learned it back in 2008. And back in 2008, 2009, I mean, Mark will remember, we were like hand coding Mobi files, and Mark had the meat grinder, and it was all just a nightmare. And then we get new tools and we learn and we change and we grow, and it's exciting. And that's why I'm excited and still around, is because I want to do this for another 15 years. So yeah, year one.
Year one. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the antitrust suit against Amazon. Is that something that we have to worry about in 2024? Is it going to make any progress in 2024, do we believe? Jane, let's start with you on that one, and then we'll go to Mark Coker right after.
These things take a long time. So I don't expect anything to be settled in the near term. I would be surprised if it concluded this year. It's going to get drug out. And maybe Mark has more insight into how. I can't judge how good the case is from the FTC, but maybe Mark has an opinion.
I think the case has a lot of merit. We were in communication on the Smashword side with the FTC very closely, going back several years, and I was heartened to see a lot of the information that we shared reflected in the lawsuit, even though it wasn't directly attributed to us. I think whether it's settled or I think no matter what happens, I think it's going to be a good thing for indie authors. Amazon is going to be held to account for their anti-competitive behavior, which is harming the book market, harming authors. All anyone wants is a level playing field. That's all. Fairness. And Amazon has not been fair in how they operate. But I agree with Jane that nothing's going to happen anytime soon. There is strong. I can see that there would be strong benefit for Amazon to try to delay this as long as possible, hoping that maybe there's a change in the political administration. But up against Amazon is the fact that on both sides of the highly polarized political aisle here in the US, both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, are not feeling warm about big tech right now, and the big tech's monopolization of all aspects of our lives. And so I think there is bipartisan support in the US for something to happen with these big platforms. I think there's going to be bipartisan support to start showing more anti-competitive concern for the impact on producers of products. And that's what we're talking about here. Authors are producers of a product. Authors deserve a fair and healthy ecosystem in which to operate and play.
Yeah, I just popped up this comment from Dina. Dina, thanks for the question. Dina's asking, when you say Amazon has not been fair, Mark, can you be more specific? And I think you started to allude to that toward the end of what you were saying.
Well, we don't have a couple hours here, but just to summarize, Amazon commands access to the world's largest collection of readers, book buyers. So in this sense, they're a monopsony. They control access to your buyers. They can set the terms for what it takes to reach your buyers. And one of the terms that they set with KDP Select, for authors who don't know, requires exclusivity to Amazon. So you can't even sell on your own website. Regular KDP allows you to distribute wide to all retailers. When you go exclusive to Amazon, it's basically a vote to put every other retailer in the market out of business, because you're denying that retailer access to your books. You're just denying their customers access to your books. It forces their customers to move their purchasing over to Amazon. Amazon has always punished authors who stray from any of their policies, even when authors make accidents or when retailers make accidents. So this goes back from the very beginning. Amazon's deliberate, systematic punishment of authors who go wide. They're very good at finding the slightest infraction and then punishing you and denying you access to their tools. Their tools, some of their great tools like KU, you can't access those tools unless you go exclusive. You can't set the price of your own books unless you go exclusive. And even then, like, you can't make your books perma-free unless you game the system. You've got to get Amazon to price match. No other retailer does this. No other retailer systematically every single year tries to lower the amount of money that they pay you, lower your royalty rate, and they do it both directly and indirectly. Amazon has become pay to play with Amazon ads.
Okay.
I think the Amazon ad system is very toxic to the future of authors, because when you advertise on it, you are basically trampling the platforms of other authors. Like if I want to reach Joanna Penn's audience for one of my books, I can advertise on Amazon, and then my books will appear in her feed when someone's searching for Joanna Penn. That's not fair to Joanna. It's not fair to readers either. And so we're starting to see a backlash against that.
Okay. I want to, does anybody else have any comments on the FTC's lawsuit against Amazon? Because if not, I have a question for Orna. Did you want to say something, Joanna, about the lawsuit? Okay. Orna, you had in your 2024 predictions post, you mentioned that you believe that there's going to be more humanization and personalization. I think you meant as in a direct response to what's happening with AI. Can you elaborate on that a bit? I thought that was a really interesting take. I hadn't heard anybody else talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's a necessary response, and the authors who move fastest on this are those who are going to do, they're going to begin to dominate their niches. So as things become more and more AI driven, humans like humans. It's as simple as that. And readers, and particularly, it depends. A lot of these predictions, it depends on which genre you're talking about. Sometimes it's not the same across the entire book ecosystem, but and it feeds into some degree to what we were talking about earlier around direct sales. So this kind of goes hand in hand with that. You have the more thoughtful reader likes a more indie kind of experience, and likes going directly to the author, and likes extras. They like to, and it's always been, the authors who are prepared to sell some part of themselves have always done best. The author that could be wheeled out on a book tour always did better than the author who was too shy to go on a book tour. And it's an extension of that. It's just in a different way. So I think, authors are becoming very skilled at using their talent with words to actually build meaningful engaging relationships with their readers online. So they're using text, video, and audio to actually create to bring the reader closer and get a competitive advantage from their creativity. And so it's the exact opposite to the Amazon model or the big publisher model, which is aim for the middle, go as wide as you can. This is about going as narrow as you can and doubling down. Joanna and I often talk about this, doubling down on being human, being prepared to be vulnerable, being prepared to be open, being prepared to have that sort of relationship, to let the reader in, to find out more about what the reader wants, and respond to that. So I talk about there being sort of three broad publishing models for authors, and possibly for everybody, but for authors it becomes very relevant. The craft model, where the artistic virtue of the book is the thing that's most important to you, and you find the reader who really values that. The engagement publisher, who is willing to customize, adapt things to what the feedback that they're getting. And then the volume model, which is what has dominated the conversation in the indie author space, I would say, over the past 10 years, more than it has actually dominated the experience necessarily. We have lots of authors who do not fall into the volume model of publishing, who make a sustainable living from their books and associated activities. So yeah, as the creator model becomes more popular in other fields as well, we are seeing that model and that economy coming in around the author. And for that, I think being human, being personalized, being intimate, being open, it becomes a real competitive advantage.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. To tag on to that, one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard from a traditional publisher was, in that same vein, was to make it universal, make it personal. And that's always stuck with me. I'm going to pop up a question here from an author. And Dale, I'll pass this one to you because it shares your same, the DR. What are your thoughts on audiobooks in 2024? There seems to be a lot of growth. What do you think, Dale? And is that
First
from
of
you?
all, yeah, no, it's not me. My hands have been on my hand rests this whole time. I promise you, I haven't. I've noticed the chat. It's really awesome. Audiobooks are going to really continue to explode, in my opinion. It's going to continue to go upward. And now that we have the available system of digital narration, some people are embracing that, whether you like it or not. It is a model that's worth pursuing, especially for those that really don't have the discretionary expense. So this means that there's going to be even more audiobooks hitting the market and giving more to the readers, more options. Because I'll be straight up with you, I read every version of a book that is imaginable, because when I go to the gym, I plug in an audiobook or a podcast. When I'm at home, I like to open up a hardback book, or when I'm just trying to be quiet and laying in bed while my wife's sleeping next to me, I'm reading an ebook, So there's a lot to say about accessibility, but I think right now audiobooks, it's the spotlight's still on audiobooks right now. And I think it will continue to grow now that there are options, and especially more affordable options for folks that probably weren't going to afford getting a human narrator that costs a premium. Let's not even, sugarcoat it. A good audiobook narrator costs a fair chunk of change.
Sure. Thanks for the question, DR. I have another question here from Skateguard. Thanks for the question, Skateguard. Skateguard asks, what advice would you have for nonfiction authors writing in a really specific niche where ebooks are significantly less popular with the readership than print? What do you think about that one, Joanna?
I was going to say market the print book. I think, I've been writing nonfiction and selling nonfiction, as many of us here have, and print with nonfiction readers and audio, in fact, are always really good. So I've focused on print. I do workbooks, obviously do nicer copies with other printers and other things like that. So I guess it's keywords, it's audience, it's the connection. It's putting it in series. There's only a few differences between fiction and non-fiction marketing, I think. But as Orna was just talking about, the sort of the brand publishing as well, the sort of personality, I can't remember what you called it, but the craft person who attracts people based on their platform, that is a way, to reach people, as well as paid ads on various things. So I would say pretty much everything works for marketing nonfiction. It's such a big question. It's very hard to answer, to be honest. Sorry.
I think there is a misapprehension that indie authors cannot publish print successfully, and that definitely is not. I think that's quite widespread as a myth. It's one of those ones that we come up against all the time, and it's simply not true. So if that's the concern, I would say just as Joanna said, just market the print books.
And public events.
Jane, I thought I saw you raising. Yeah.
Sorry, I've been trying to put this in the comments, and the comments do not like me. So through the Hot Sheet newsletter that I publish, I release free bestseller lists. You don't have to be a subscriber. It's right there in the menu. And I think it's fascinating to look at what the self-published print bestsellers are month after month. It's predominantly nonfiction. And if you go and research some of those authors and what they're doing, I think you're going to get a ton of ideas about how they make this work. It's really fascinating to see the very niche topics that reach that list.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to bring up another question. And Jane, we'll stay with you for this question. Traditional Classic Tales, read by Sherilyn, asks, are bookstores going out of business due to ebooks and audiobooks? Is that true, Jane? What do you think?
No, no, they're doing very well. If you look at the chain stores, Barnes & Noble was having a tough time. Part of that was a leadership issue. They have new leadership since 2019. They've been increasing sales. Things look pretty good for them. And then on the independent bookstore side, that's also, they have healthy figures, healthy membership, healthy sales. Print's not dead, I think, is the message here. And the bookstores that are able to serve their communities do quite well selling print. Some of them are able to creatively also sell in digital formats, like Libro.fm is one retailer that helps independent bookstores sell audiobooks. And then, of course, we can't forget Bookshop, which is the alternative to Amazon, which donates a portion of its sales back to the independent bookstore community. And they expect to start selling ebooks this year, but we'll see what happens.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We are at our time already. That was a quick one, but I wanted to give you all maybe another minute or so to any last bits of wisdom or advice that you'd like to cover before we hang it up for the day. And as we go through, I'll pop up your the different links to each of your sites. So let's start with Joanna.
Yeah, so what I would say is things have been changing fast and they're going to get faster. So I think what the thing to remember is you do not have to do everything. And in fact, we need to stop trying to do everything and concentrate on the core. If you get overwhelmed, literally step away, step out of the stream and get back to writing. And that's what I tell myself. I'm totally addicted to the AI news. I mean, I really am, but I need to step away and not shiny object syndrome everything. So it's pick your lane, stay in your lane perhaps, but still keep awareness, try new things, but do not get overwhelmed by everything. You can follow my show, you can follow any of our information, in fact, and we curate a lot of it for you. So I mean, that's probably one way forward. But yeah, if it gets too much, step away and just focus on writing.
Excellent. Jane.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Joanna said. I think the advice I often give to people who feel a little anxious or overwhelmed at what's happening is just put your eyes back on your own work, keep your eyes on your own paper. Doing more work, I think, is the solution to some of that anxiety. I'm not saying stick your head in the sand, but I tend to be optimistic. These things tend to work out in the end, knock on wood.
Thank you. Orna.
Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with everything that Jane and Joanna have said. I'm continuing that theme. You will hear a lot of people telling you things about all sorts, and the only way you're going to know whether that's relevant to you is to give it a go. So I think approaching your publishing, and I'm talking about here in a spirit of experimentation and exploration as to what's working for you, and being more you, which is part of the being more human thing we were talking about earlier. Not being, you will hear advice from authors, and because the author is genuinely trying to be helpful and saying this works because it worked for them, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But because it didn't work for you doesn't mean that something else won't. So following your intuition in this new world, I think is a good way to go.
Thank you, Orna. Dale.
Oh man, they've already said so much great things. So all I'm going to do is just piggyback on things. Being an indie author is like a choose your own adventure book. And oftentimes, whenever I was reading a choose your own adventure, I'd hit that dead end where I was like, I didn't want that to be the ending. But here's the thing is, folks, as an indie author, you will make mistakes. I promise you will make more mistakes than you will have victories. And you have to embrace those aspects of this business. You need to understand that, yeah, sure, some things will work really well for you and other things won't work really well for you. But if you can kind of get back to the core of why you are in this business, why you are writing, and stick to that why, no matter what comes in the way, whether you're getting your feathers ruffled by AI and all the lawsuits and how it's stealing people's work, or you're frustrated that direct sales isn't quite working out with you, focus on the long game, embrace your why. And I think you're going to be really successful in 2024 and beyond.
Thanks, Dale. Mark.
So I'm going to riff on something Joanna mentioned about shiny objects. there are a lot of shiny objects that authors are confronted with all the time, and they distract us all the time. My advice for 2024 for authors is to focus on two really big things. So one is craft. So often when I see conversations among authors, it's about marketing and how do I market? How do I advertise? How do I do these quick little fixes? What seminar should I take? What course should I take that makes everything easy for me to become a bestseller and be able to sit there on the beach or walk through the woods as I'm, giving my carnival barker pitch? That stuff, you've got to get beyond that. Focus on craft. Your best marketing is the best book. A great book markets itself on the wings of reader word of mouth. Focus on the book. I want to see more focus on craft, creating the best product that you can. I would also like to see more focus on best practices. I think we lose track of essential best practices when we focus on the shiny things. So let me give you an example. In preparation for this, I asked Bill, formerly the CTO of Smashwords, to do a quick data crunch for me. As some people know, we used to do something called the Smashwords survey every year where we would analyze the data. So I asked Bill to do an update for me on our pre-order data. What we found, we looked at the first 6 months of 2023. We looked at the number of books that were released as a pre-order, first released as a pre-order, and the number of books that were just uploaded the day of release. And then we tracked those sales for the full year 2023 to see how they differed. We found that only 16% of books were released as pre-orders. All right. So basically 85% of indie authors are totally screwing up. And the evidence for that is that the 16% of books that were released as pre-orders sold 5 times as many copies on average. All right. So best practices, folks. This is an essential evergreen best practice. This tool's been available for 10 years, yet 85% of indie authors aren't taking advantage of it. So please do. There's things like other best practices, beyond pre-orders, professional book covers, professional editing. This is all common sense stuff that the professional indie authors are doing. But 85% of indie authors are acting like amateurs. And self-publishing does not have to mean amateur. It should never mean amateur. You can be a professional publisher. You should be a professional publisher. That's how you rise. That's how you achieve your dreams. That's how you you build a living. That's how you reach readers. So focus on that.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody. Well, we've come to the end of our time here. I want to remind everybody that if you could please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Self-Publishing Insiders, we would really appreciate it because it helps us to get guests like all of these wonderful people that we had today. Also, be sure to bookmark dddlive.com because every week we'll have a new guest and a new topic to talk about. As a matter of fact, next week on Thursday, January 18th, we have Eric Bursch from USA Today who's going to join us to talk about the new revamped USA Today bestseller list. So come prepared with your questions to talk to Eric. And finally, if you are an aspiring author and a new author, why not go to draftedigital.com and sign up for your free Drafted Digital account today. I want to sincerely thank each one of you, Joanna, Mark, Orna, Dale, Jane. You are the best of the best. I know you're all super, super busy, so we really, really appreciate your time. If you guys can all hang out in the green room for a few seconds, we're going to just run our quick DDD print spot, and we'll see you in the green room. For everyone else, for all of our viewers, thank you so much for joining us again this week. We'll see you again next week. Thanks so much, everybody.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created DDD Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at draftedigital.com.